Hello, hello. Today I'm so excited to talk to you about how to position yourself as a leader. A lot of you who reach out to me ask me, how do I show executive presence? How do I get opportunities that are at my level? And so I'm going to talk to you about how to do that. Just a little context. I have been helping over 1,000 professionals, directors, VPs, C-level, land opportunities that are aligned with their potential. The number one thing that a lot of people who reach out to me share with me that is blocking them is not communicating their value at their level. If you have a tendency to ramble, if you have a tendency to talk about your experience in a way that makes a hiring manager or recruiter question whether you truly operated at the right level, if you are at a disadvantage because you are already operating at the next level, but you do not have the title. For example, so many people out there, because of their organization structure, maybe there isn't vacancy, right? The person above you is never going to leave. There isn't room for you to move up. And so you're stuck working at, let's say, below director or at director, but really you should be VP, right? But the reason that you're not getting those opportunities is because the title is pigeonholing you into that. The best way to overcome that and move up is to start speaking like a leader and not relying on your title to do the selling for you. That is the biggest mistake and the misconception that holds people back in their career is they rely on their title to do the explaining and the selling for them. You can't do that. You need to do the selling versus rely on your title to do the selling. Okay, I'm going to go super tactical and super specific. If you are watching, what would mean a lot to me is if you actually engage in the comments, if you ask me questions, because I want to make sure that I give you value. And the only way that I will give you the most value is if you ask me questions. So let's get right into it. I'm going to anchor this into a client example that I've recently helped. I've been getting a lot of clients who go to multiple interviews, get all the way to the last round of interviews, and don't get an offer. People come to me with that problem. And the root cause of that problem, or the reason that, they're getting interviews but not converting them into offer, is actually two things. Number one, they're targeting the wrong role. They're applying to all kinds of roles. They're not sure what role to actually focus on. The second issue is the way they speak about their experience. The thing is, if you want to grow in your career, you can't speak about your experience in a way that describes your past professional identity. You need to align what you've done towards the identity that you're targeting, right? So let us say you're a senior individual contributor, for example, right? And you want to land a director level role. You know deep down that a lot of the work that you did really was at the director level. But if you keep speaking about your experience in a way that sounds like you are, a senior individual contributor, instead of speaking the way a director would speak, then recruiters will keep mistaking you for someone junior. Okay? So let's get into it. Essentially, there are 5 things that you need to demonstrate if you need to sound like a leader. The first one is ownership. So when you tell your story, when you talk about something that you've done, when you talk about an initiative that you led, right? If you just say like, yeah, I was on this transformation program and I delivered X, Y, and Z, and this was the outcome. It can sound very junior if you talk about it that way. What you want to do in the first sentence of what you're sharing is you want to show ownership. The way a recruiter or a hiring manager is going to determine your level is not always by title, because organizations, the titles in one organization is different. Like a director in a smaller company is not going to be a director in a larger organization, right? So instead of just saying I was a director at company XYZ, talk about the scope that you owned. How many cross-functional teams did you manage? What was the dollar value? What was the budget that you owned, the P&L that you owned? Was it 20 million? Was it 30 million? Was it 1 million? How many customers were you impacting? Now, if you're going to be one of those people who is going to say, yeah, but I didn't own any P&L budgets, it doesn't matter. Whatever you were working on, whatever you were leading, describe to me the complexity using numbers. Help me understand the size of what you were responsible for. Okay? And if you weren't responsible for the entire thing, you can say that you co-led an initiative that had a $20 million budget. But if you don't give me those concrete numbers to describe the size of what you have done, then a recruiter is going to have a hard time picturing how senior you are. They're not going to take your word for it, and they're not going to base your seniority on your title alone. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing, as a leader, the more senior you are, the more alignment work you do, because you're working at the organization level. You're not working at a team level. And part of working at the organization level is you need to demonstrate that end-to-end oversight. So a lot of the work that you would be doing is alignment work. It's talking to cross-functional peers. If you're describing your experience in a way that doesn't show that, and you don't talk about it in your stories, then again, you're going to come across as junior. You're going to come across as a team lead, not as an executive who managed people. So talk about how you broke the silos and be specific in terms of who your cross-functional partners were. Who were you collaborating with? Were you in rooms that involved senior executive decision makers? Were you communicating with the board? Were you often, meeting with VPs and SVPs? Make that super clear. The third thing that you need to include in your stories, strategy and execution. What are some of the strategic things that you've done? Did you set the strategy? What type of strategy did you set? Were you also overseeing the execution? How many teams did you have to oversee to ensure that the strategy was executed correctly? Be specific about that. Don't go into GPT and ask GPT what to say, give me clear examples, because when you just give high level information and you're not tying it into specifics, that doesn't make it a story and it doesn't make it believable. Okay. So we talked about ownership, alignment, strategy, and execution. The fourth thing that you need to talk about, coaching teams, building teams, developing people. The biggest difference between someone who's an individual contributor, a team lead, and someone who is an executive at the director level, VP level, is your ability to build teams and coach them. It shocks me sometimes. Like, I had a client that I was prepping for an interview. It turns out that she had like 50 people rolling up to her, 50 people that she was mentoring and coaching and developing. And she didn't mention that in her interview answers. And so, of course, recruiters didn't think she was capable of leading or didn't have the people management skills. You need to make that specific. And I know that a lot of executives, the reason they decide to become executives and move up is because they truly love developing people. You need to talk about that, and you need to talk about how you are contributing to a better culture at your organization by building those teams and developing people. Bonus points if you built a function from scratch. Make that very apparent. Tell a story around it. How did you build that function from scratch? What were some of the challenges? How did you get the buy-in to make that happen? Tell me a personal story of maybe some of your direct reports who are struggling. How did you retain them? How did you help them improve their performance? So, a few things to remember that is going to distinguish you from someone who is more junior. The last thing that I want to talk about is risk reduction. That is extremely important. Again, the problem that I'm seeing is that when executives talk about what they've done and their experience, is they don't tie what they've done to the company's bottom line. And you need to do that. You need to tie what you've done to the business outcomes and the business objectives. Were you able to deliver on the business outcomes? Were you able to reduce risk? What was the approach that you took in order to reduce risk? Okay, so I talked about those 5 things. Look, it is very hard to remember them. It is very difficult to know how to apply those different aspects to your stories. And the thing about improving the way that you frame your experience, it's not just for interviews, it's also the perception that you create when someone's looking at your LinkedIn profile or when you're applying for jobs. A lot of people complain, especially executives, that, hey, if I apply cold to an opportunity, I am not going to get any traction. And I need to be connected with people. I need to have people in my network. I have clients who know all the right people, but because they don't frame their experience correctly, they're not convincing to someone who doesn't know them, who doesn't have the context in terms of what is it that they do. Of course, someone who knows you personally is going to have the patience to listen to you and understand what you've done. But then, is it a good idea to simply rely on the existing people in your network? You're just going to be pigeonholed. Your career is going to be pigeonholed to the people around you versus potentially opportunities out there where the hiring managers don't know you. And the best way to overcome that is to work on the way that you frame your experience and your executive presence. So I encourage you to work on that because that can open doors. I have a lot of clients who are at the director level and above who have found opportunities at organizations where they didn't know anyone. And it turned out to be the best experience. How they did that was working on their positioning and the way they frame their experience. It's a valuable skill set that you need not only to land a job, but to even grow within your career, to show up at a meeting, to provide a status during a meeting and talk about the wins that you've created and own it, right? Okay, so if you are in a situation where you are very frustrated because you constantly feel misunderstood, whether it's by your current boss or you feel misunderstood by recruiters who reach out to you, and you're constantly getting opportunities that don't align to your potential, then we can solve this. I offer a 15-minute career diagnosis. One of my clients, Stephanie, she booked that 15-minute career diagnosis after she got laid off being a director at the same company for more than 14 years. And when she booked that free career diagnosis, she got clarity on what's holding her back in her career, what she's doing wrong, what she's wasting her time on that's not getting her the results that she wants to make. And so after she talked to me, she got clear. She realized the mistakes that she's making, and we came up with a focused roadmap to help her achieve her goal of landing an opportunity that she loves, where she can make a great impact. Once she had that clear plan, she decided to implement that plan with me after she did the career diagnosis. And we started working together, we executed on that plan. And not only did she land an opportunity that she loves, but she actually ended up moving up to the VP level. She underestimated the value that she was creating for organizations, and she wasn't framing it at the right level. But once she did, it opened doors. And by the way, she didn't know anyone at the company. She ended up moving to VP, not at a smaller company, but a much larger company. And she increased her salary. So if this is a type of result that you want to create for yourself, if you realize that staying where you're at is going to make you obsolete, it's going to make you feel stagnant, it's going to cost you career opportunities, it's going to cap you at the compensation level that you're at, then I highly recommend starting with booking that 15-minute career diagnosis. So how do you book that 15-minute career diagnosis? Very simple. All you need to do is you need to go on my LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to show you where to find it. I'm going to share my screen now. Give me a second. All right. So on my LinkedIn page, you're going to see a button called Book an Appointment. So when you click on it, it's going to take you to this page here. And feel free to watch the video. It talks about my story and how I was in your shoes, feeling stagnant in my career, not enjoying what I do, and how I came out of it. And you'll also end up hearing some of my client stories. Then you can click on this button, Book Your Career Diagnosis, and it's just a 2-minute intake that you fill out to help me understand what your goals are and what is standing in your way. This will give me a clear idea of what's going on so that we can make the best use of the 15 minutes. So once you complete that, you can pick a time that works for you, and then we can have a conversation. If we decide to work together, we can implement the plan. If not, you still have a plan, which is pretty awesome. All right, so that's it. If you found this helpful, I would love it if you take a moment and share with me what was your biggest takeaway as I was sharing with you those ingredients to put together a story that ensures that you're being perceived at a more senior level. Write that in the comments for me. And then if you would like to pay it forward, because, it does take time to share this information and do these lives. I'm actually about to take my dog for a walk. You might have heard him whining. But the thing that you can do, because I can't see you and I can't hear you clap, there's no audience, is to just click the like button. It's free. It takes a second and it gives me feedback. It tells me who was watching and whether this was valuable. What it'll also do is put this in the feed for someone who needs to hear this and could benefit from this. So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful night. and I will talk to you all soon.